we need to cover, and that is House Bill 2382. Going to open up the hearing on that and allow Nick to pass out his handout and go over the details of the bill with us. Welcome to committee. While we're waiting on Nick, I will say to the committee to welcome my best friend who comes up every year, once a year, to walk around and shadow me and kind of see what legislative life is like and just be a great friend and a great man and a great father. And his name is James Hersey. He's right over there. So give it up for my best friend, James. You can clap. And now, Nick, we will turn it over to you. Thank you, sir.
I like that. That's great. So good afternoon, committee. House Bill 2382. This is the bill that would change state law to increase the daily rate of compensation for members of the State Board of Education while they are attending meetings authorized by the board. So real quick, the way that this is work is it's going to, what's happening in this bill, it would establish the daily rate of compensation to an amount that corresponds to the daily amount that you all are paid as members of the legislature while you are in session, essentially. And I'll talk about the formula that this establishes to determine that amount here in a sec. So let's start with a real quick briefing on what current law says and kind of how why this law is being changed for this purpose. So currently, the State Board of Education member pay is tied to statute. So currently, KSA 72253 establishes that members of the State Board of Education shall receive their compensation amount, and then also travel and subsistence allowances as provided under statute, and specifically under 753212, and as provided for members of the legislature. So this statute, this compensation statute in Chapter 75, sets some statutory compensation amounts. So the daily rate of compensation is established in statute at $88.66 per day of meeting attended. And then also subsistence allowance is established pursuant to statute. That's not really changing in this bill, but I do have it referenced in my memo. And then also statute does provide for mileage. So with regard to this bill, we are really talking about that daily compensation amount. And as the law stated, that amount was tied to the daily rate of compensation for members of the legislature. So what happened is in 2023, the legislature enacted 2023 House Sub for Senate Bill 229. This established the Legislative Compensation Commission. This Senate Bill 229 directed the commission to study the legislative compensation and salary structure, and then also the retirement benefits of members of the legislature, and then to set that compensation and salary and to make recommendations regarding those retirement benefits. So on October 12, 2023, the Legislative Compensation Commission established and submitted its report to establish the legislative pay, which increased legislative pay and increased the base salary. And this was to take effect in 2025 unless the legislature enacted to stop that, and the legislature did not do so. So pursuant to this Legislative Compensation Commission's report and recommendations, starting this year, the 2025 session, members of the legislature are paid $43,000 per year as a salary, and then they're also authorized to receive subsistence and mileage in accordance with the law. This payment for members of the legislature is front-loaded, so, and according to the Compensation Commission's schedule, you all are paid 60.03% of your base salary during the first 5 months of the year. Those months are thought of to encompass the legislative session months. And then during the final 7 months of the year, members of the legislature are paid the remaining 39, almost roughly 40% of the base salary. So then each year thereafter, starting in January 2026, that base salary amount is then supposed to be adjusted each year based on the percent change in wages for all Kansas employees as reflected by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So it is indexed to that Bureau of Labor Statistics wage difference. So what this bill does, this bill would essentially tie State Board of Education member pay to the legislature's pay. So this bill would establish a formula, and you can see on the back page of my memo how the formula determines that. So really this formula is taking the base salary, so take the base salary times the amount that legislators are paid while they're in session, so the 60.03% amount, and then divide that by 90 days to get a daily pay rate amount. And that's what the formula does, and if you were to enact this formula, that base salary amount would then also be adjusted in future years according to that indexing that's done on members of the legislature salary moving forward. So this would capture and would move ahead in accordance with the legislative salaries. And you can see that currently, until that first day of the 2026 legislative session, that base daily rate would be, if you do the math, it would be $286.81 for members of the State Board of Education, and that basically corresponds to what the Legislative Compensation Commission reached with regard to payment for members of the legislature attending interim sessions. It's very close to that daily rate of pay for interim meetings that you all attend. And Mr. Chair and members of the committee, I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Representative Hill first, and then we'll come to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Nick. Do you probably have this number, but what does that work out to on an annualized basis for the State Board of Education?
Ooh, I don't.
90 times the 286.81.
Because that would be, and you'd have to determine it based on their number of meeting days, and I don't know how many meeting days they typically have during the year, and members and official business of the board. So I don't have that number, but maybe.
So that 90 days isn't the number of days that they meet? What's the 90 days?
The 90 days is a method to determine kind of that front-loaded salary payment that members of the legislature receive, and then divide that by 90 session days. Typically, a session is roughly 90 calendar days.
It's essentially what we're getting per day here. Okay, I understand that. So, and so, and if they met 150 days, which they obviously don't, they would get as much as we do or more.
Yeah, they'd get that 280.
But you don't really know how many days they meet.
I don't. Hopefully, the department can help out with that question.
Theoretically, it's 2 days a month, but then I'm sure it's more than that.
Yeah, it would be, and the statute does, let's see, it'd be for any in-state or out-of-state meetings, essentially official business conducted by the state board, but hopefully the agency can kind of help out with an estimate of how many days total we're looking at.
Thank you very much.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When does this take effect, and is there any retroactivity in it?
So this would take effect starting July 1, 2025, and then no, there is no provision for this to be retroactive at all.
Representative McNorton, you guys are doing it to me again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if our compensation package would change in the future, whenever that would be, this would automatically change at the same time to stay current with what, the way I.
Yes, essentially. Now, I will note that the Legislative Compensation Commission, pursuant to the statute, and we'll see how this happens in future, in the future 4-year periods corresponding with the Senate's 4-year term of office. But the statute does state that the Legislative Compensation Commission, it says shall set the rate of compensation. Well, yeah, it should stay current, as long as the Legislative Compensation Commission doesn't come back and meet again and change up a lot of how the salary structure is done. It should stay current. Now, I will note, if the Legislative Compensation Commission does meet again and kind of change up some things, we would need to look at this statute again.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Nick. Just the history for clarification in my brain. The state school board has always been paid what legislators have until this, or no? Until like this, the House sub for Senate Bill 229.
And under the law, it is said that the State Board of Education members are paid just like what is established for members of the legislature according to the law. So I don't know of any other change that occurred to where they were tied to any different amount.
It just was like an oversight when this was done last time for the state board. I'm just curious why they weren't included in the package that because I wasn't here then, so I'm just looking for a little history.
Yeah, for sure. And there were some other entities included and in different ways in that bill. The governor's office, I didn't print the bill off, 229, but there were some other kind of statewide elected positions that were included in some pay updates, commensurate with maybe congressional pay and things of that nature. But this one just was not, the statute was not updated, so the statute is still saying the pay rate is established pursuant, like members of the legislature, pursuant to KSA 753212, which then directs you to another statute, which sets the daily pay rate at $88.60 per day.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Hill.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. I just did a little bit of quick math based off of the fiscal note on this, and the fiscal note is for information of the committee, is based off 59 days for the year, and which amounts to a total amount per state board member of $16,900.
If the committee would like a handout of the fiscal note, I have them right here, so I might as well hand them out. If we take care of that for a second, and then if we have any questions for research or for Nick around the fiscal note, that would be great. I'll share this one with you. Just so you have it, it's on the shared drive and website, but then you've got a printed copy today. Any other questions around the fiscal note now or the bill overview? Seeing none, Nick, you did a great job. Thank you very much. I will point us to, which sorry to get you guys up again, but if I believe in your packet you have, confirm with me that you have Kathy Hopkins' testimony. Did everybody get that? It should be right in front of you. It's actually pretty brief. Basically just supports the priority by amending statute to establish a daily compensation rate for members of the State Board of Education in an amount that corresponds to the daily compensation rate of members of the legislature while in session. So signed by Kathy Hopkins and Danny Zach. So with that, I will invite Dr. Harwood up to give any comments around this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hate to question Representative Hill's math, but it's actually based on 78 average days. The reason the number is different is that some of the increased cost is actually.
Hold on. This guy's not wrong. This guy's not wrong all that often. So we have to say.
That's what he had bad information this week. We needed the rest of the information. Yeah.
All right, explain yourself, sir.
So if you apply it by days, 78 days times the increase in daily rate, you actually get over 200,000. Some of that is actually fringe benefits costs, which are already covered. So when you look at the daily rate, what it costs the agency to pay that is 170,000. But the way we did that is the math exactly, the formula exactly the way Nick explained it. We got the fiscal note by taking it times the average number of days, which is 78. It's 2 days a month plus other things. The way the state board divides out their days is they actually have a thing they call shares. A regular member gets 1 share. The chair and the vice chair get 2 shares, and then the legislative liaisons get a half a share. So it's a share during this session. And so that's how they divide up the days. And then what we do is in January, we say, hey, by the way, you're going over budget, you need to slow down, or those kinds of things. So that's how we came up with the budget. A couple other things just to cover is that, so I would say that pay for legislators and state board members and stagnate, I mean, it was the same for a long period of time. The legislature decided in order to be able to attract a greater wealth of perspective to the legislature, the raise was in order. The state board thinks that is also true for the state board. In essence, what we're doing, a little bit to Representative Steele's question, was the law actually says tied to legislator salary. It's just a legislator's salary got moved to a different section of law. So all we're doing is just pointing the current law to where that goes. The big difference is that now you get a salary. And so that didn't make as much sense for the state board. We decided to stay at a daily rate of pay. We thought, well, it's pretty easy to calculate a daily rate of pay while you're in session, because that's defined of the 60% in 90 days. So we just kind of looked at what had happened and what seemed to make the most sense. And so that's how we came up with what we have. One thing I will point out is, because this came up a little bit, probably even in appropriations, talking about the State Board of Education in reference to other boards and committees that the legislature works with. Just a reminder, the State Board of Education is elected. There are 10 state board members, which means each state board member has 4 Senate districts, or somewhere between 14 and 16 House districts. So they represent a lot of people. They don't meet as often. That's why we didn't say, well, they should get $43,000 a year. So we just kind of came up with what we did. But we do think it's important that the state board gets recognized for the work that they do, just like the other state officials that we're taken care of in the Senate Bill 229.
Questions for Dr. Harwood? Representative Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Harwood, I thank you very much for pointing out my errors. My wife thanks you very much as well. But I want you to take back to the State Board of Education that I am on record as saying that I think they can complete 78 days worth of work in only 59 days. They're so efficient. So,
well, again, you were working out, you used the 170, you didn't have, until you got the fiscal note, you didn't see that the number was higher, and then we backed into what it would actually cost. So, yes, but I will convey that to them if you would like.
Representative Estes.
So you said 2 days of meetings per month plus the other, and the shares are the other. And how many people, go through that again, please.
There are 10 state board members, and they average, we looked at the last couple of years, they average 78 days at their daily rate of pay. And we use that as an average because the chair and the vice chair have more days, and then the legislative liaisons had more days than that. So I might have to have John come up and explain how exactly the shares work, but that's
what I'm not understanding, is just like, what type of task? Are they out in the public representing the state board in official capacity?
Yes. So, so an example would be, there are superintendents have regional meetings, and they go to those on some days. They could be at an award celebration in a district. And so each month, the board votes on board travel, and so they keep track of that. And we keep track of how many days we're paying for to make sure that we don't run out of money before we have a June meeting or something like that.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you for your help. Appreciate it. Committee, this is our last day to move this out, so I would entertain a motion. Representative Estes.
Nick, do we need a motion for emergency final action, or can I just move the bill directly? Okay, I make a motion, we suspend the rules and work this bill today.
You've heard the motion. Does it have a second? Representative Steele seconded that. Or actually, let's give it to Representative Swartfurter. I like that. I like the boldness over there. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We are on the bill. Now, do we need another motion to pass out the bill? I would entertain a motion. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the K through 12 Education Budget Committee pass out 2382 as written.
Thank you for that. I got a second from Representative Estes very early. So seconded by Representative Estes. Discussion. Representative McNorton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have not looked at the House Bill 2007. Do we know if appropriations has this appropriate, or the $170,000, is that?
It does not. It will, if this passes the House floor, it will be part of the trailer bill that comes to kind of clean up any other bills that get passed that were not included with appropriations. It's my understanding.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Will this be subject to pay-go?
I would have to ask Nick on that. I don't think so. I mean, this is a bill that will come through separately. It's not being added to the budget. That's why the trailer bill. That's my understanding, but I'll let Nick answer.
I think what Representative Hill is getting at is, I mean, should there be a floor amendment or something of that nature to capture this bill? I believe that floor amendment on the bill would be subject to pay-go. Yes. This bill, not otherwise, but certainly as the appropriations process continues to churn forward, this could be captured at some other time in the process, notwithstanding a pay-go ruling on the House floor. Okay.
It would be captured like an omnibus at a final omnibus?
It certainly could be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion, Representative Owsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know how the committee feels about the controversial nature of this bill, but I feel like it's rather not controversial, and I don't know if the committee would consider putting it upon the consent agenda. Just food for thought for the committee.
Nick.
So let's, I mean, the only hurdle with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman, is we got to think the 3 days for the consent calendar and the turnaround. Well, I guess this is not subject to deadline, so we should be good there if the committee wishes to do it that way.
I will just say I've got it on the calendar with Majority Leader as it is going to, if it passed out, that he was aware of it and was going to put it in his schedule. So as long as we pass it out, I think we're going to get a chance to vote on it on the House floor with pretty high measure. Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's one thing I might ask the committee there for a slight technical amendment. So it would be a be passed as amended, Representative Johnson's motion with as amended. There are 2 places in the underlying statutory language. You'll see a KSA reference, and then it doesn't have an amendments there too after it. And that typically is something that I would capture in the drafting process. And I would just maybe request the committee to accept a technical amendment for me to add in 2 locations. It would be on line 13 after the statutory reference, and in line 20 after the statutory reference, and amendments there too.
Will the committee, Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With approval of my second, I would like to add a technical amendment per the our advisor on line 13 and line 20 or 19 as was mentioned. Change my amendment, or to an amendment.
I think Representative Estes gave you the thumbs up, so we're good there. Further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, committee. With that, we have concluded our business for today. I guess I would just remind us of where we started and to not forget the ground that we've taken in this committee, to keep some of that momentum going. I know it gets hard as we go through session, and all of us have things that we're fighting for that don't always get through, don't always get done, don't happen the way that we want them to, but just keep fighting for your stuff and do it with respect and with honor, and we'll move the ball down the field. And so I appreciate what we've done in the first half. Look forward to working with you in the second half, and let's go attack turnaround. With that, we are dismissed.